So for today's video, I'm going to be having Goku Black versus Space Godzilla. Before I get into the fight, I'm going to briefly explain who these characters are and what they're capable of. Starting with, I think I'm going to start with Goku Black, since most of my viewers probably know more about Godzilla than Dragon Ball. Goku Black, his actual name is Zamasu. He was essentially one of the Kais. This Kai from a different universe than the main Dragon Ball universe. There's a small multiverse in Dragon Ball. Essentially, after watching Goku's power, being essentially immortal with God's power, he got a little pissed. The guy never really liked mortals. He viewed them as a sort of stain on the cosmos. So he kind of just didn't want them to exist. He felt they had no real reason to exist. He thought it was justice to get rid of them. So he did what any pissed off god would do, I guess, and stole the Super Dragon Balls, basically the Dragon Balls, but planet-sized, and there's no limits to what they can grant you. Summoned Super Shinron, just better Shinron, and stole his timeline's version of Goku's body, then murdered Goku's family, and also kind of went on a massive killing spree. So that's essentially who he is. He then does a bunch of other stuff, and eventually is defeated with the combined efforts of Goku, Trunks, Vegeta, and eventually they actually had to call him Zeno. And there's no real winners at the end of his arc. He's one of the few villains that you can't really say the Z Fighters really beat, as he would have actually won regardless. They just kind of made sure he couldn't completely destroy every timeline and multiverse. As for his actual power, well, for starters, the Goku he took over should logically be a Goku past Battle of Gods, so little deep into like mid-super-ish. Well, actually, it would be late super if you're anime, mid-super if you like look at the manga and stuff. So, as a base power, since he does have Goku's power and is actually stronger than Goku was at later in the arc, he's at least low multiversal, but probably a lot higher. The reason for this is even characters like Buhan were at least multiversal, as they threaten the entire macrocosm of Universe 7. That's a low multiversal feat. Most summer realms in Universe 7 are considered infinite, although many people like to nerf Dragon Ball universes to finite. Most official statements tend to lean towards several infinite realms. Stuff like Hell, Otherworld, and Hell basically being the same thing. Otherworld would kind of be heaven, I guess, sorta, or heaven and hell combined. It's also Limbo, but that's kind of non-canon since GT isn't really canon at all. But I mean, Heroes is a thing that's not canon, but it implies some type of connection between GT and Super to some degree. So you could argue Limbo might be there too. Obviously, the main universe, the Kai world, even stuff like Beerus's realm and etc. They're arguably infinite each, although some of them are probably finite. Either way, he's really powerful even in base, and he'd be stronger than that Buhan, obviously, because Super Saiyan God Goku was stronger than Super Vegito. Super Vegito was stronger than Buhan, and Goku Black's base would be stronger than Super Saiyan God Goku was in Battle of Gods. As Super Saiyan God kind of becomes your base after you use it the first time. It doesn't stack if you reuse the form, because otherwise Goku would be super overpowered, so would Vegeta. And anyone that has God, he really. So for base, he's likely actually somewhere in the higher multiversal range, or at the very least mid, as he can destroy infinite universes, or at the very least infinite universe-like realms. As for his dimensionality, there are implications that stuff like Otherworld is 4D, however there's nothing that really makes it 100% confirmed. The Dead Zone is kind of confirmed 4D to a degree, but that's kind of not completely canon. And even if it is, we don't know if it's actually connected to the main macrocosm. And the guy who used it was more likely using some form of magic or just hacks-based stuff. He wasn't actually overpowering the realm, more likely than not. Otherwise, like Kid Gohan would be 4D at the start of Z. So I feel like that's kind of stretching it there. Well, higher dimensional stuff does definitely exist for Super, as anything above the main, like the multiverse should at the very least be 4D as a just combined. And like Zeno should obviously be somewhere in the higher dimensional range, but we don't really know set numbers for it. But more likely than not, Goku Black somewhere in the 4 to 5D range, potentially higher, potentially lower. So be somewhere there. As for abilities, he has most of what Goku has, although he tends to put his own twist on it. His version of the Kamehameha, the Black Kamehameha, does seem to be a lot stronger than the basic Kamehameha, at least just when you're using the normal version, not the super version. Don't let the name fool you though, it's kind of pink, not black. I don't know why he calls it the black, I guess because his name. He has several different blade abilities. He can make a kind of short, straight sword-like blade, a long scimitar-like blade, and a full-on energy scythe. He's capable of creating clones of himself by kind of tearing through time itself, which can be argued as a showing of higher dimensional abilities. He doesn't get Zamasu for this, so he's not going to be able to do any like super powerful combo abilities with Zamasu. He has pretty normal ki-based attacks like Ki Blast, Ki Beams. He does have instant transmission, I believe. So that's basically teleportation. He should be able to mimic other moves like Destructo Disc, potentially even a weird take on like the Spirit Bomb, although it obviously wouldn't be the same move. It'd have to work a lot differently. Maybe something like the, I think it was just called Death Ball, even though Frieza's move was already called that prior, that Super Baby used in GT. It might have been called something else. But it was essentially just an evil version of a Spirit Bomb. He can also make energy shards that he can like basically stab into you and they all explode. He tends to use that with his sword at the same time. His time ring kind of makes it where you can't really kill him through time travel bullshit, so like characters like Flash would struggle with that, at least until they take the ring off. Like there's a death battle where Reverse Flash does that. But overall, yeah, Goku Black has a lot of abilities. He's essentially just a more deadly Goku. As for speed, he should very easily get to infinite, if not beyond infinite speed, as even back in Z-based Goku was flying across an infinite hell in finite time. Instant transmission is also basically infinite speed, and Metal Cooler could outspeed that. Well, not technically canon, and most of the infinite speed showings of Z aren't really canon. I don't really think anyone's going to argue that the filler or non-canon versions of Goku are going to beat current Super Goku. At least the Z versions. So, yeah, he should have infinite speed. There's several showings of what it should be infinite speed. And there's also, of course, people like Jiren being straight up confirmed beyond time. So, infinite speed. Obviously, Goku Black isn't on Jiren's level. But he's not like so far under it's impossible for him to have at least somewhat relative speed, or at the very least relative but on a much smaller degree of infinite speed. His transformations boost his power a lot, so he already was in the higher, maybe lowballed mid multiversal ranges. His transformations give him pretty big multipliers. We don't have an exact one for Rose, but Super Saiyan is a times 50 to times 75, depending on if it's mastered or not. It's probably mastered. And yeah, I know some people say that it's 50 regardless. It isn't. We know for a fact it isn't, because how much stronger the higher grades of Super Saiyan were from the basic 50 that we saw in Namek. And I doubt Goku Black is using the basic 50. And Super Saiyan Rose is just Super Saiyan Blue, but pink, so it should be relative to Super Saiyan Blue. Super Saiyan Blue is a times 50 on top of the Super Saiyan God multiplier, which is estimated anywhere from 2,000 to over 8 million. So I usually have it around 20,000, maybe higher, maybe lower, but it's a big number regardless. So either way, he's going to be very far into the multiversal range now. Now, on to Space Godzilla. His is a lot easier because I know more about Godzilla than Dragon Ball, despite being a fan of Dragon Ball for far longer than I was a fan of Godzilla. But, Space Godzilla right off the bat is going to upscale basically everything we see in the Showa era of Godzilla. This is important because the Showa era had like 40 universal feats midway through with Zone Fighter, and then 100 times multipliers being thrown at Zone Fighter afterwards. Godzilla would upscale that, King Ghidorah would upscale that as well. There are massive multipliers after this as well. However, many of them are left for interpretation. There's also the weird car thing that was able to crush a car. It was a car compactor that was able to crush a car. I believe it was 10,000 times more durable than Zone Fighter. And Ghidorah should upscale that, as the people that made the car kind of quote-unquote owned Ghidorah, and they basically said Ghidorah is their strongest weapon. So he'd be stronger than the car, just by logic there. Now you could argue that that wasn't meant to be taken as literally as it is. It probably was, knowing how Toho is. So you can potentially get King Ghidorah to over 10,000 times, 40 universal by the end of Showa era, and you can even get him higher than that, since Godzilla's implied to get multipliers after Zone Fighter. And there's heavy implications that Heisei Godzilla is stronger than Showa Godzilla by his first movie. While I usually am kind of iffy on that, it is an official statement, and there is actual solid evidence to back that up. Unlike stuff like, Final Wars being stronger than Burning Godzilla and stuff like that. Like, there's no evidence to back that. For Heisei Godzilla being stronger than Showa, there's actual evidence to support it. So, going off that chain of logic, you add in all the multipliers Godzilla gets, which is like times 200. And then he's taking hits that are 10,000 times stronger than his atomic breath. And then obviously all the stuff with Biollante and Mecha Godzilla, who is actively stronger than the 10,000 times more, I think. So by the time Godzilla's getting to Space Godzilla, he's either like so far in a Uni Plus, he might as well be multiversal, or he's multiversal. He's ignoring a lot of feats that could honestly put him on multiversal, like confirmed, by the way. So Space Godzilla as a baseline is so much stronger than Godzilla, he's smacking him around like a ragdoll. And to gauge Space Godzilla's power, you have to go off what Godzilla's amp was after he absorbed Space Godzilla's power, and that was an infinite amp. I am not saying that Space Godzilla is like infinitely multiversal, although you could argue that. I'm more so saying that Space Godzilla had enough power to make Godzilla multiply that high, which is something we don't really ever see again until the Infinite Heat Ray, which is actively a lot more powerful than that. So he should be pretty damn far into the multiversal range with his more consistent stuff. There's also like confirmed stuff where he's able to light up the universe and he's converting that to infinite energy and all that stuff. So he's probably multiversal. You could lowball him a lot, say that he's only super far into Uni Plus. If you don't believe in, like, once you get so far in Uni Plus, you should basically be multiversal. If you don't believe in that argument, then yeah, you could argue that, I guess. But I don't. Like, he should be, he should be multiversal, just due to everything we see in the Heisei era. Now, as for speed, he travels from the edge of an infinite 40 universe to Earth, so, in finite time, obviously, so that's infinite speed. You can argue that's just travel speed. It isn't, as we see him fight Mogira at those speeds. And his crystals are faster, and both him and Godzilla can react to them. Now, a lot of people like to argue that he's only like Mach 3 on Earth, because they'll be like, the atmosphere nerfs him. Well, he controls something called supergravity, which is a 4-dimensional form of gravity, which can bypass the entire atmospheric effects that would basically nerf his speed. So, anyone who says that, I want you to tell me with a straight face that you actually believe Space Godzilla, a hacksmonger, would let his speed be nerfed while he's actively trying to kill Godzilla. Yeah, exactly. Space Godzilla can fight at infinite and possibly beyond infinite speeds due to the crystal's time, so, and his Corona beam's also faster. As for abilities, he obviously has the same regeneration Godzilla has, meaning he regenerates from basically almost one cell. Obviously, if there's showings where Heisei Godzilla's getting his ass beat so bad that his regeneration just gives up, there's usually other things going on that play into that. But I will admit his cellular regeneration is kind of iffy. But at best, he could probably regenerate an arm or like a leg over time. And in Godzilla vs. Destroy, we see him regenerate so fast, he's basically regenerating as fast as he's getting cut by Destroy's laser katana, so he has a healing factor regardless. He can fly, he has telekinesis, super gravity, he can fire lightning blasts from his shoulders, which function kind of like gravity beams. He can fire his Corona beam, which is just basically an atomic breath that he can aim, and he can aim it as he's firing it, so the beam can basically become a homing missile. He can summon his crystals or shoot them at you. As I already explained, they're super fast. He can drain energy from basically anything. And he also might have some more like mind control stuff, but it's not really ever expanded upon. Besides a little bit like the manga, but it's not like ever a big part of his abilities. But he might be kind of psychic, essentially, which doesn't really matter here. So, from what I just said, the area I'd put Space Godzilla at normally is probably with a massive low ball, just super high uni plus, which is bullshit, as Showa Godzilla is massively outclassed even in the first movie. And Space Godzilla is way above first movie Godzilla. And with a slight high ball, he's into the very high multiversal. Goku Black should also be pretty high into multiversal as well. So, depending on how you scale them, they're pretty even. Now, when it comes to speed, Godzilla has more consistent infinite speed feats, but the Dragon Ball has more implications of the speed increasing over time. So you could argue Goku Black's faster when he's just moving, but in combat they're pretty relative. Now, as for who would win an actual fight, there's a couple things to consider. One, the clones of Goku Black are an issue for Space Godzilla, as they can just start spam destroying all of his crystals and weakening him. Two, Goku Black likely couldn't take as many hits as Space Godzilla could due to lacking the regeneration. And three, both have a habit of getting a little cocky at points. While they seem to play it smart most of the time, Goku Black and Space Godzilla have a kind of superiority complex. Maybe not to the same extent as something like Perfect Cell or I guess King Ghidorah, but it's still there. Goku Black's going to view Space Godzilla as a little more than just a mortal beast that he needs to just one shot, and Space Godzilla is going to view Goku Black as a little more than a weird pink-haired human that he has to kill. So, the way I see the fight actually going down is it's really, really close. But I don't see Goku Black really playing it smart enough to win. If he wanted to, he could just start destroying all the crystals with his superior speed and use his clones to overwhelm Space Godzilla. But the problem with that is Goku Black doesn't usually fight like that, especially in the anime where he's actively trying to get a good fight. The Saiyan part of him is actually taking over, sorta. Space Godzilla, on the other hand, he's going to be fighting, and all he has to really do is land one good hit, whereas Goku Black could land a very good hit, Space Godzilla would just regenerate. And the odds of them landing a good hit are pretty even. With most of Goku Black's weapons and abilities not really being good against Space Godzilla due to the blades not being big enough, or the Kamehameha lacking as much accuracy as the Corona Beam. Like, yeah, he can be accurate with it, but the Kamehameha isn't bending. Yes, Goku has a bending Kamehameha, but we've never seen Goku Black do the bending Kamehameha. He probably could, we just don't see it. Now, if we were to add, like, hero stuff for Goku Black, yeah, he would, like, one-shot Space Godzilla. Even if we added the manga stuff for Space Godzilla, which is, like, completely fucking insane stuff. Like, some of the most insane feats in Godzilla, just in general. But, yeah. I see Space Godzilla likely winning this. at least 60 times out of 100. Although it is a close one, a very close one, depending on how you look at it. Also, my scaling for Space Godzilla was kind of off here, as there are better ways to scale him. I was trying to keep him in the lower ends of what his scaling can be, as I didn't want to push it too far. And also, I'm in the middle of scaling different eras of Godzilla, so my Heisei scaling might be a little bad right now, just due to me kind of forgetting some of the stuff for Space Godzilla that's in the guides, etc. But yeah, that's how I see this fight going. If you guys enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.